Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today, we're tackling something we all deal with every single day. Risk. You know, that thing that makes us think twice, maybe hesitate a bit, makes us double check things, buy insurance just in case.
It's everywhere, isn't it?
It really is. And you sent in some super interesting sources about risk, and honestly, I'm really curious to unpack them all with you. So for today's deep dive, our mission is to go way deeper than just the danger aspect of risk. Like what really is risk when you get down to it? And could there actually be maybe some upsides to it?
Hmm. Upsides to risk, huh?
Right. Let's see. Let's start with that classic definition, the one from the Oxford English Dictionary. It
Yeah.
says, risk is the chance of danger, loss, or adverse consequences. Pretty straightforward, right?
Sounds like it, yeah.
But is that all there is to risk, really?
That's the question, isn't it? I mean, even that basic definition you just gave, it kind of hints at something else, too. It mentions chance, right? Yeah. So risk isn't like a guaranteed bad thing, is it? It's all about possibilities, different things that could happen.
It's not a sure thing. Just a whole bunch of different potential outcomes. And actually, one of the sources used a really good example to illustrate this whole risk thing, this whole idea of chance. They talked about owning a car.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
We all know that owning a car can be risky, right? I mean, there's the chance of accidents, breakdowns, repairs. Yes. Oh, and don't forget those pesky parking tickets.
Uh-huh.
But we still accept that risk, don't we? Why? Because of the benefits, of course. Like the freedom to go wherever we want, whenever we want. The convenience of it all.
It's a trade-off, isn't it? We weigh those potential downsides against the potential good stuff.
Exactly. It's like a balancing act. But, speaking of good stuff, one of the sources really emphasized something that kind of blew my mind a little.
Oh, what's that?
Well, it was the Institute of Risk Management's definition of risk. They pointed out that the outcomes of risk, well, they can be both positive and negative.
Ah, yes. They really drive that point home, don't they?
They do. I mean, we often think of risk as something to avoid completely, but they're saying there's another side of the coin, that it's not just about what we might lose, but also about what we could gain.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. Think about entrepreneurs, right? The people who launch new businesses, new products, they're facing a ton of uncertainty, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, the market might totally reject their idea, leading to big financial losses. That's
Yeah.
definitely a risk. But that same uncertainty also holds the possibility of huge success, doesn't it? If that product takes off, if it becomes the next big thing.
The rewards could be enormous.
Exactly. And it's that possibility of positive outcomes, that potential upside, that really drives so much innovation and growth in the world.
It's like that saying, no risk, no reward, right?
There you go.
But, it's definitely more nuanced than just blindly jumping into the unknown, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the sources we have, the ISO Guide 73, their definition of risk really helps us understand all those subtle details and nuances.
What do they say?
Well, they define risk as the effect of uncertainty on objectives. So basically, anything that could throw us off course from our goals, no matter if it's a positive or negative event, that's considered a risk.
So it's all about understanding that whole landscape of possibilities and how they all connect to what we're actually trying to achieve. This whole idea of uncertainty affecting our objectives, it reminds me of something. This time when I was thinking about making a career change, it was a big decision.
I bet it was. Was it a tough one to make?
Oh, it was definitely tough. On one hand, I was really comfortable in my role. I knew what I was doing. It felt safe. But I also felt like I wasn't really growing anymore, like I was hitting a ceiling. Taking that new job, that was a real risk.
Yeah.
Could have meant a lot more responsibility, longer hours, and yeah, even the possibility of failing. But at the same time, it was a chance for growth, for new challenges, maybe even greater satisfaction in the long run. The uncertainty of all those potential outcomes, both good and bad, I'll admit, it definitely kept me up at night.
I can only imagine. It sounds like what you were wrestling with. Those are what we call strategic risks, the risks that pop up because of the choices we make about our long-term goals.
Makes sense.
And that doesn't just apply to career decisions either. It's relevant to all sorts of things. Financial investments, relationships, even something like choosing where to live. All those decisions involve strategic risks.
So how do we actually get better at navigating this whole world of uncertainty? What are some things we can actually do to, assess and manage risk in our own lives?
Well, one of the most important things is to just be aware of the different types of risks that are out there. We've talked about strategic risks, but there's also financial risks, operational risks, even compliance risks, to name just a few.
So many risks.
Right. And once you figure out what types of risks you're dealing with, then you can start to think about how big of an impact they could have and how likely they are to actually happen.
So going back to my career change example, I guess I could have made a list of all the possible positive and negative outcomes, and then maybe tried to guess how likely each one was.
Exactly. That's a great approach. Gives you a much clearer picture of what risks you're actually dealing with. And then once you have that picture, you can start to brainstorm right. Think about ways to minimize those negative risks and ways to make the most of those positive ones. Maybe for your career change, that would mean networking with people in that new industry or taking some extra courses to sharpen your skills.
I see, I see. So it's like risk assessment. It's not about pretending there's no uncertainty, right? It's more about making smarter choices because we understand those possibilities and know how to work with them.
You got it. And don't forget, risk is just a normal part of life. It's going to be there no matter what. Learning to navigate it, that's what can unlock all sorts of incredible opportunities for us.
This deep dive has been seriously eye-opening. Thanks for walking us through all these different angles of risk. I definitely see it in a whole new light now.
Happy to do it. And remember, risk is more than just about danger. It's really a doorway to all kinds of possibilities, good and bad.
Absolutely. So for all of you listening out there, leave you with something to think about. Knowing what we know now about risk, how can we approach it differently in our own lives? Are we playing it too safe? Or are we being a bit reckless? Just some food for thought as we continue to explore this fascinating and maybe a little bit unpredictable world of risk.